actually beat the odds because the doctors told my parents, won't happen again. Go ahead. They wanted to have a big family. 6 wasn't big enough, or 5 at the time. And thank you, Mom. And so they went ahead, and I came along, proved the doctors wrong, because they didn't know at the time that dwarfism was genetically passed on. And we actually had a friend who wrote to me a year ago. She read my book and loved it and blah, blah, blah. And then she said something strange. She said, your siblings, I have 4 older brothers and sisters, all average height, no problems with the pregnancy, the delivery, nothing. So my brother was a complete surprise to my parents, as it is to many who have someone with dwarfism. 80% of dwarfs are born to 2 average-sized parents. And there are over 200 types of dwarfism, some with varying degrees of medical issues. Mine comes along with generally arthritis and malformed joints. But there are other more severe medical conditions. One, which is called primordial dwarfism, where they do not live past the ages they can. So I was really fortunate in my situation because it did not affect my internal organs in any way. And my pregnancies also were fine. When my doctor was not sure if my spine would hold out, I did not have any issues with that at all. So my brother, a year and a half ahead of me, after he was brought home, my oldest brother told me recently that there was great celebration because they had waited so long, and although they knew there was an issue, this did not change my parents' love for him, and nor would it for me as well when I came along. And so this friend of the family emailed and said, your siblings were angry when they found out they might be carriers of STD, and that they were concerned for their own children. And I read that and I thought, really? Because maybe I've been in my own self-absorbed world and didn't realize the pain that my siblings carried. But as my past had taught me not to let these miscommunications live for too long, I emailed them and asked them, I am so sorry, were you angry about anything to do with my other brother and I? And I wrote to 2 sisters and my oldest brother, who's a lawyer, very sort of direct, and I figured he would tell me the truth. My sisters would prop me up and make me nice. So I wrote to those 3. My sisters wrote back right away and said, we were never concerned. We knew that we knew you. And whatever child would come to us would be perfect. We declined on genetic testing because we didn't think that there was a problem with the likes of you and my other brother. We know that you've created a good life for yourself, and they didn't want to mess with the medical world in that way. So I was relieved that they didn't seem to harbor anything that I didn't know about. Then my older brother wrote to me, and normally he writes 3 words and walks out. And this time, the email was beyond discreet. And I thought, uh-oh, this could be bad news. He starts telling me about his memories of when my brother came home after 2 weeks although you brought a wound and a suffering, because we all suffered when you did, you also deepened our humanity. And I was so touched, and I looked at the screen and I sobbed. I reread it and I sobbed more. Because my brilliant brother understood about how adversity brings this deepening, this truth of who we are. And that I had never shared my view, and so I never heard his. So the friend of the family who had originally started this rumor actually became a blessing, because my sisters and brother and I were emailing quite a bit that week about our memories of each other and our love, and how sometimes life and things and rumors and challenges get in the way, but there's always that opportunity, and sometimes it's through some troublemaker, some rascal who gets you to think and asks you to bring out, when she said your siblings were angry, I thought, I felt that fear inside. And so that's my responsibility. So if someone else triggers in you a feeling you don't like, it's not really their fault. It's your responsibility to clear it up. If it's true, you can make changes. If it's not true, throw it out. Always, that's always our choice. She in fact admitted that she was one of the many, she said, who questioned my mother when she got pregnant after my brother was born with autism. And my mother told her, well, the doctor said my brother was a mutation and that it wouldn't happen again. And she said, for years I felt so badly that I had been insensitive. And I can only imagine how many times my parents were questioned. I remember the doctors questioning us. Did you take vitamins? Did you smoke? Did you exercise? As if they did something wrong to create something right. So, and another good question, is there a difference between dwarfs and midgets? I'm so glad I have this opportunity to tell you all, because the word midget has become used in such a negative way that the LPA, the Little People of America, which is a wonderful, huge group of little people and their families, which many are not little people, really feel that this word could be put in the non-politically correct arena because of the way it was used when we were growing up, always with a negative intention, to be cruel, to be mean. And midget actually was never a medical term, so really the acceptable term is either dwarfism or little person. Even in the little people community, people feel differently about it. But midget is even when I say it, it feels foreign on my tongue because it was used in such a harsh way. So if you could erase that from your vocabulary, and little person seems like the friendliest way to define, because we really are just little ones. That was that. Okay, do you have siblings? I answered that. Yes, there are 6 of them. And are you friendly with the ex-wife? Well, I'm happy to say she does not live on this coast, so I don't really have a relationship with her. After the wedding, really, once her daughter moved out and was on her own, there was no reason to, which may or may not have been a good thing. I did get to see some really positive sides of her. She had always been funny, but sometimes her humor was sarcastic and it was used against my husband and I, and we could only appreciate it in hindsight when we didn't feel that wound from her, that resentment that she could at any time sort of pull the plug on a visit or criticize us over the phone. So I have not had to have her in my life. I haven't sought her out either. Can I paint now? Yes, I do. I'm careful with my shoulders. I've never had shoulder replacements. I go easy with them. They let me know when I've done too much, but I can now draw and paint. I still love it. I have bookmarks and magnets that I've painted, and I do some hand painted cards when I have time. So art will always be a part of me, yes. Will you write another book? Absolutely. Love to write. Love to write. I don't know what the next book will be because I'm still focused on this one. But it's going to be more of a how-to find joy, because my biggest question I've gotten is, well, how did you do it? What were the steps? And that's a tough one. It's individual for everybody. But there are some keys that I've followed along my lifetime that help. They've been laid out by other self-help authors, so it's generally not new information, but everybody has their own way of saying things, of writing things. And so I still want to pass on the messages that helped me. How did I meet my husband? Do I tell you? We met at a friend's house. Thank goodness, because I was pretty much a hermit. I was very afraid of the world. I did not believe anyone would ever love this. I didn't. So I didn't see how that could translate to the outside world. But after my hip surgeries and knee surgeries, I had taken a real hard look at those limits I'd set on myself, and I was working on removing them. And I was having conversations with my future husband in my head when I went to bed at night. I kid you not, because when we prepare for the best, that's when we get it. It's when we prepare for the worst and maybe hope a little for the best, maybe have a 50-50 shot. But you have to really walk forward with the hope and the awareness that it's possible. And I could see that I had not believed it was possible, and it had not happened. So I was starting to see how those two things tied together. So I had been, for about a year, I had been feeling like, okay, there's something valuable in me, there's something worthwhile. And I went to a meeting at my friend's house who ran a holistic health fair every year, and Bill was there. We were volunteering to help out at the fair. It's a fun day. It's uplifting, a lot of positive therapies and people. And we met at the meeting, started talking about, of all things, surgery, because he was recently out of surgery on his elbows from weightlifting for years. And we just, something clicked. But even then, I didn't trust it. I did not trust it because it's never worked before. Why should it work now? And I remember saying to him, many months after we'd been together, said, what made you trust love again after a nasty divorce and difficult times? And he said, well, I was bound to get it right one of these days. And I thought, what a good attitude. I was always lobbing my past into my future as if to protect myself. What was I doing? Protecting myself from the good. So you really have to unwrap all that armor and expectation of the bad happening again. So I had enough that I thought it could. I had seen a lot of challenges, and I could have focused on them. I did for many years. But when I switched my focus to what I wanted, what I hoped for, what I dreamed of, and spent at least 51% of the time thinking about that, then that's what ripples out. That's what gets answered by the world. How do your children deal with your condition? Well, they don't know anything different. They realize I'm short. I remember one day I went outside to tell my son something, and I saw there was a new boy. They have a great group of neighborhood kids. And they were all outside, and all the kids know me, and they love our house, they love our yard. Even when we're not there, they play in our yard. And so they don't know me, and they don't, I'm not given a second glance. I'm Spencer and Tyler's mom. But there was a new boy, and there was something about him that I said, he's a rascal. And I have those antennae now after years of dealing with rascals. And I knew that he was either going to say something or do And then when I turned to go, I looked over at the new boy, and I said, hello, what's your name? And then he looked at my son as I backed away and said, is that your mom? And my son said, oh yeah, she's a dwarf. I was like, oh yeah, she's blonde. So to them, their eyes see the difference, but they know who I am in their heart. And they have witnessed that I have my ups and downs like anybody else. But I'm so similar to the other mothers. They don't. One of my dear friends is 6 foot, and so it highlights her height. But I don't think about it as much as I used to, and I don't think my sons think about it much at all. And they are both average height, by the way. If my husband had carried the gene for SED, there would have been a 1 in 4 chance that our child would be affected. And both of my children being average, as opposed to most people say normal, but really, none of us are normal. We all have our oddities, right? And the things we try and hide from people. And so when we say normal, it's such a tiny category. We really need to broaden that to include a huge number of people in this world who don't look or sound or appear to fit in. Because we're losing out on who they are. And it's so easy to look past the one who uses a wheelchair, or the one who appears differently, or makes funny sounds, or doesn't relate the way that you do. But really, those people, those of us who have been marginalized in this world, which everyone I'm sure has felt it at times, it helps us get a better perspective of what's really going on. So these are the people you need to tap into for answers, for a different vision of what the world offers, because they have it. Oh, this is a great question. What do you do when you have a close relationship with a couple and they challenge you at your most vulnerable moment, blaming you for a life and death situation and claiming you for the demise? What an opportunity, I say, to really look at what is inside you that makes you blame yourself for the demise. Because very often what other people will try and heap on you is what you might believe a little bit about. Because if you didn't, you could clearly, objectively, look at what they're saying and know that this is their deep grief. They are blaming you because they don't know what to do. And it's very disempowering to blame others. So if we bring out our compassion and look at them and say, yes, that hurts to be blamed, but on the other hand, it's really hurting them. They're not taking up the reins to say, we have to live with this loss, this tragedy, this fear. We have to do something. We can't point the finger. It's like the old saying, when you point the finger, 3 are pointing back at you. That's where the responsibility lies. So if someone else is blaming you or challenging you, you say, this is an opportunity to clean up that mirror on the inside so that I can be a reflection to them of my humanity, my compassion. Because if they're going to blame someone they care about, they're really hurting. They're really in pain. And it may come out as anger and rage and nastiness, but under that is that unbelievable grief and insecurity of where do I go with this? It's like when we're little and we blame our parents, we don't know what to do with the pain. And we think maybe they know what to do. But instead we're saying, well, if I can't do it, this is really where the power lies. So if someone else is saying, you are to blame, they're taking away their own power. And so they're really feeding their own grief. So try and be a mirror, a kind mirror, You don't have to be around them if it's really that bad. But to have those imaginary conversations with this couple might be helpful. To hear them say what you believe is happening. Hear them tell you about their pain. And you may forget about your own pain. And you may be able to be with them in a way that will help them move through this grief, feel it instead of blame other people, and then you can be friends. If you walk away saying, oh, they're nasty, they're horrible, they did this to me, you may lose out on what they have to offer, and you may also lose out on being a light in their life. Our blurb says you acted on television. Well, I hope so, but no, I've been on TV on interviews. I was interviewed on NBCLX and a Fox station in Connecticut and a morning Fox station in Boston. I haven't acted, though. I think that'd be fun. Recently, I was on the set of the Extreme Makeover Home Edition because a family in the Little People of America group won that house. Did anyone see it recently, the Corpay family? Did you see it? There was a little bit of me at the end. And it was so much fun to watch from behind the scenes how when the bus comes up and then the limo comes in and they say, move that bus, move that bus. Well, they did that 3 times. So anticlimactic. The limo would pull in and then it would back away. And then it would pull back out. And we kept wondering, are they in the limo? And then they did come out the 3rd time and we went, oh! Because the show makes it move so easily that you don't realize it was a long day. We were there till midnight filming the end where the Corpays had a center for dwarfism built onto their house. So this was part of their win. So that was very exciting. I love the whole, my mom has loved being on stage. She used to do the League of Women Voters in Mountain Lake, where I was born and raised. And so I love the idea of actually having a script would be kind of exciting. Because once you know your lines, it's a lot of fun to be part of a group that way. And I was never part of organized sports or a group where you really come together. So in high school, I was in The Sound of Music. I was Gretel, the littlest one, and I just had the best time. Being part of a group, trying to come together and make something work was really exciting. Definitely the highlight of high school. Have you seen the Little People reality shows on TV? Yes. And what do you think of them? It's a good question. I think it's great that it's out there, that people watch these shows and say, oh, they're just like me. They're just small. And they have some medical issues. But really, I mean, we're all human. We're all the same race, ultimately. And I find that the shows don't run deep enough. And that a lot of reality shows are kind of surface issues, and they like drama. And I'm always waiting for that inspiration or those words of wisdom, and they don't come. But they are serving a purpose to let people know that those who look so different, seem so different, really aren't. They just want to live, a happy, peaceful life like anybody else. We all have obstacles, and Little People know that better than anyone, that this journey is a universal one. And it's really no different for me, except that I was seeing it as different, and I took it on. I believed that. So that was one of the biggest roadblocks, not the actual condition. Were your pregnancies difficult? And is your arthritis common to dwarfism? It's common to my dwarfism, not to all, though. The most common form is called achondroplasia, and it's, I think, what most people consider dwarfism, where the torso is average and the arms and legs are small. And so they stand out a little more. That's the most common. I think 1 in 10,000 is born with that. It seems actually more common than what I see. I don't run into Little People very often. One time I was in the grocery store and my son said, Mom, another little lady like you! Laughed like that. And I said, oh my gosh! Had I been at the time prepared, but he was only 3 at the it would just cripple me, that I would be embarrassed, that I would be ashamed. And instead, I found they are a great source of strength because they surprised me. A man I met when I was out in California, I was speaking at the national convention, and he was maybe 2.5 feet tall. But what a firecracker. I loved him. Even I was taken aback when I first saw him because he really didn't have elbows. His arms were so tiny. And when I reached across the table to shake his hand, he couldn't reach me. And I had to push myself over to reach him. And when I got to know him over the weekend, because he was a friend of someone I knew, it was so impressive. I could just see how his struggles had made him great. And he inspired me. And he came to my talk, and he emailed later and said, I'm so glad you're speaking about this to other little people, because we're all sometimes behind the eight ball. We don't know what's good about us. And it's good to have someone holding the light and reminding us of what's good. I think that one. Your son carries the gene for dwarfism. I believe they would carry it. I'm not sure of the whole genetic. I once knew it, the genetic breakdown, that my husband has 2 dominant genes. No, so they might not. It's a 50-50 chance, I believe, for them to carry it. But really, it's not. It used to be a concern for me when I was pregnant because I thought I couldn't watch them go through the same gauntlet I've been through. But somewhere along the way, that started to change when I realized that those dark times really bring out great lessons. And whatever they run into in life, which will be, some adversity, otherwise we don't seem to grow, that they will handle it in their own way, and whether it was dwarfism or something on the inside, all of it is there to help catapult us towards something better and brighter inside of us. Well, where did I grow up? I grew up in Mountain Lake. Yep. My parents had the great foresight to pick Mountain Lake because they knew that my brother and I could walk to school. They knew that the school system was good. It was small. We wouldn't be overwhelmed or trampled. And that we had the beautiful surroundings, the forests and lakes. And I really appreciated that as a child. I spent a lot of time feeding the ducks at the lake and walking through my neighborhood, feeling safe there. It was very important. They also knew they could stay through high school, which they did, and actually through college. So it was just a wonderful choice. Thank you. Oh, and I wanted to say that I'm wearing the pearls that my mother wore on her wedding day, which is today. And it wasn't planned, but I was talking to her last night about what I was going to wear, which always becomes a concern at the 11th hour. And I showed her the dress, and then I said, well, then I have this shirt, and it's not very dressy. And she said, oh, I have some pearls. They always dress up the shirt. And I said, really? And she said, yeah, I wear them on my wedding day. I said, well, I have to wear them then. Do you have any artwork at the She Gallery in Booth? No, I don't know. Is it S-H-E or is it called She? I don't. I haven't really been looking for places for my art. I sell it when I sell my book, and I don't have the time right now to have that other focus. I have learned great focus from my dad. He always had the ability to take a project and see it to its end and do it really well. And I'm not a great multitasker like my mom, but I tend to take one thing and sort of do that. If I focused on getting my art out there, which used to be a dream, it would dilute what I'm doing. So maybe in time I will look up the She Gallery. Let's see, do you have a religious influence in your life? Good question. I was raised in a family that really really believe there was a higher order. There was a God looking over us. We went to Sunday school for a little while. What happened was, when we lived in Cranberry, New Jersey, my father was a deacon, or a deacon, is that right? And a tenant building on the outside of town had burned down. And he asked the board that they use the money from their annual strawberry festival to help rebuild that building. And the board kind of hemmed and hawed and didn't understand, and he waited for their answer, and finally when they came back to him, they said, no, that's not where the money's going. We don't really want those people there anymore. And my dad was so shocked that this church, the shepherd of its people, was going to just say no to those people. So what did he do? He took that darkness and he used it for light. He went out with a bunch of neighbors and friends, and they went door to door, and they raised the money to rebuild that building. So that's my religion. You know, we did not go to Sunday school. I think my older brothers and sisters did. But after that, my father was really disappointed with organized religion and saw the pitfalls. And so my religion today is really about the spirituality of finding the light in the darkness. And I don't have one particular religion, but I believe all of them, their highest tenets are all the same. They're about love. They're about forgiveness. They're about tolerance. They're about compassion and community. And loving each other, even if we are rascals and troublemakers, to still look for that goodness within. So I don't have a particular religion, but I think that banner of what all religions believe in is about oneness. Beyond setting an example for your children, how do you instruct them to live as positively as you do? We moms want to know. That's a great question. It's a big challenge raising kids. I give my parents so much credit. They had 6 running around. And it really is a daily look inside myself. When I see my kids acting out, almost every time, there's something going on with me that I'm not acknowledging. And when I talk to them and we find that common ground again, they are much more willing to listen to why I believe they should not stand on the table or why they should come to dinner. But to really treat them as if they have an important, beautiful soul that has something to say, has something to teach. Way too often our schools overstep the children to say, well, we know what you want, and we're going to instruct you, and never looking at the incredible diversity and individuality in each child that needs to be nurtured, and really can't be in a class of 30. So at home, it's really important to have them looking within themselves. Do they want to rise above an argument with a friend or an argument with their brother? And to help them do that, to be that mirror, and to clean off the inside before you go blaming other people. And to use our life circumstances as a springboard to something better, instead of keep staring at the difficulty or the problem, to start becoming part of the solution. So we have to live it. It's not something that is in a guidebook or in a manual. It's just something to live and to model for them. The Spirit Hub is a neat concept. Has there been any talk about a movie? I don't know, do we have any producers here? No, none that I know of. Did you ever have your shoulder operated on? No, I have not. I hopefully won't have to, but I'm willing now. I don't have that fear holding me back anymore. Have you ever spoken to a high school group? Yes, I've spoken at my old high school, which was very intimidating because I knew what kind of audience they were. I knew they would, it's a boring day. It can be so boring. And I had a cynicism in high school like many do. And when I got there and looked out at the crowd, boy, those faces were just blank. And even when I smiled at some of them, they kind of looked like a shoe at me. They do not acknowledge the speaker. But there was a group of hearing impaired kids over to one side, which I've forgotten that Mountain Lakes now hosts that program. They're not really integrated into the school, but they use wonderful resources there. But I can only think they must feel so isolated. And so I felt like I was there to speak to them. And as I spoke, I remember one boy in the corner, I just felt like he heard me. And I was really excited about that. I thought if even one person hears something, it was worthwhile to get over this incredible fear and intimidation to stand before them and speak. And then, by great fortune, I was walking through the school and I ran into the interpreter who had been signing for me while I talked, which was really neat. And she said, "Oh, did you meet Julie, the teacher of the hearing impaired?" And I said, "No." So I went in and she said, "Oh, I wanted to be there, but I had to catch up on some paperwork." Teacher's nightmare. And she said, when my kids came in, they were so excited. And Josh, or someone, she said, came in and said, "We really connected with her." I thought, wow. And it turned out Josh was the one that I felt was hearing me. Because I said, "Was he the one in the big cushy chair with the hair down over his eyes?" She said, "Yes." So I said, wow, I got that confirmation that it was important, at least for him. And she said the other students felt that way too. So I think I will be speaking at more schools. A lot has been happening. There's always more to do. But I think high school in particular, they are ripe for understanding that their differences make them stronger, but also they're not that different. We all thought we had to be the jock or the good-looking one, and really they had as many insecurities as we did. We just didn't know it. So it's great to have that conversation and open that up. So there is more awareness in high school, so people don't have to suffer for as long thinking that they're alone in their differences. What does your mother identify as her biggest challenge in raising you? Wow, good question. I'll bring Mom up here. She would kill me. But she could line dance up here. She's 81 and she still goes out line dancing. She can do it longer than I can. Her doctor asked her the other day, "So do you sit out some songs? How long does the program run?" She said, "Oh, about 45 minutes." And he said, "So you must sit out some." She said, "No." Wow. I don't think the doctor probably could dance that long. But what would she say were the challenges? Well, the shock. I think the shock for both my parents of like, what? Because most average type parents would not know that they could give birth to a dwarf, and it's very common. I mean, it's the most common. So the challenge, I think, for them was to understand what was going on in my brothers and my mom. Because we were not very open about it. We didn't know how to talk, and we just thought it was something negative because of the way the doctors had talked about us with the negative terms, and because there were children laughing and pointing, we really kept it to ourselves. So I think for my mom, she really wanted to know more, and she didn't know how to draw that out of us, not knowing where we really were in our own understanding. And because I was a good actress, and I fooled everyone into thinking I was okay when I wasn't, because I thought looking okay meant you were okay. And that's not true. And most of us in high school were acting And it's, I guess, what everyone goes through, and we start to unravel it as we get older and realize there's no sense in hiding our humanity, our fear, our anger, all of it. That's just part of life. And if we feel it and express it, it moves on. If we hold it, it is powerful. It will hold back your dreams, too. You won't see them. Your head's down, and you're walking right past the good stuff. The power of a positive attitude is great, but do you have a checklist for getting rid of the garbage in your head? Good question. A lot of great books out there on this subject. Do I have a checklist? Number one is to notice when you're thinking negatively. It doesn't sound like much, but it's very important. Stop. Like when I was on my way to the DMV, I said, stop, look what you're doing. You're planning for the boring disaster. What good will that serve you? So it's really important to know what we believe. Like what I believed about the DMV turned out to not always be the case. What we believe about ourselves is very often incorrect. Wayne Dyer has a saying, he says, don't believe everything you think. Because very often we've had thoughts and beliefs handed down to us that really don't serve us. And they probably didn't serve anyone, but they've come down through the generations, through our society, through different influences, and nobody's checking to see, if this is true, is it serving the general good? Maybe not. So as individuals, we need to check. If we're going into that negative place, it's generally from a belief we hold about ourselves, and that I believe our soul would never hold about us, would never see us in that negativity, or see the other person, or the DMV, or the ex-wife. Our soul would be cheering us on, saying, wow, this is a great opportunity, this is an adventure, this is a great challenge, get your teeth into that. We'd be saying, what a jerk that person is, and she said that, and he did that. That just keeps you in the negativity. So that's the first step. It's a really important step. It's one that we can do every single day. Check when you're going to that place of pain. And if it's something deeper that needs to be looked at, for me it was. I had bigger issues that I had held on to. I found all sorts of wonderful people to help, authors. I had a great therapist. I found support. I needed mentors. I needed people who had been through some challenges and found the other side. We've got to have someone to look up to. Is the Cherokee story in your book? No, it's not. But my next question. Oh, this is a note from Debbie and Darcy Chestnut, who I went to school with. Their father is out there. Hi. And I have not seen them in years, but they are great gals. So thank you. Oh, I got them all, I think. Okay, do we still have time? Does anybody else have